What's up guys, and welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Origins with me, TheOneIntegral. As you can tell, today we're covering Aerodactyl. This is the last Pokemon from the Kanto region I'll be covering for a little while, then we're going to move on to Johto, Hoenn, etc, and eventually we'll come back around again. So, remember to suggest some more Pokemon for Johto in the comment section below, and obviously further on Hoenn, etc. And what Pokemon do you want to see me cover in Kanto when I get back around to it? Do you want to see Mew and Mewtwo? Do you want to see the Bird Trio? Do you want to see anything? Just let me know, guys. So, for now, let's get on and cover Aerodactyl. So, Aerodactyl is number 142 in the National Pokédex, coming just before the legendary sort of thing, but just after the main bulk of Pokemon. Its Japanese name is Terra, and it is the fossil Pokemon. It's a rock flying type, and it stands at, or doesn't really stand at, its height is measured at 1.8 meters or 5 foot 11 inches. Now, sometimes this is wingspan, sometimes it's actual standing height. I tried wingspan for Aerodactyl, it didn't quite work out because it made it really tiny and no one would be able to fly on it as is shown in the anime. So I did try out proper height and it actually does work, so we'll look at that later on, but its height pretty much is 1.8 meters, 5 foot 11 inches. Its weight is 59 kilograms or 130.1 pounds, making it a fairly heavy Pokemon. Looking at the models from Generation 6, you can see, now this model isn't brilliant because it's not really stood up properly, it's just sort of hunched over a bit with its wings outstretched, but you can see the shiny model for Aerodactyl is, instead of being the grey, purpley colour, normal colour scheme, we have a pink-blue almost, and it looks really cool. I'm not sure if it's my favourite shiny or one of my favourites, but it does look a bit cool. Don't know how cool, but it looks like a little cool. It's really up to, personal taste. As you might know, Aerodactyl doesn't evolve from or into anything, it's just a single line, single chain evolution, nothing happening apart from obviously its Mega Evolution, which we'll look at a bit later on. So, Aerodactyl. It is a winged reptilian-like Pokemon with many features of sort of reptiles, dinosaurs, a mix basically. It has pale grey coloured skin, and it has also pale purple wings, so you can see it's a very pale Pokemon, okay? It hasn't got any sort of big, bright, vivid colours on it, apart from when it's a shiny, because it's just, the grey and sort of the purple. It's not even a deep purple, it's just sort of a purpley grey colour. It's a bit meh, to be honest, but that is Aerodactyl. It has small hands along its wings that sort of come out sort of halfway along. Most winged-like creatures have these, but Aerodactyls are just sort of small. It's basically a hand, you can tell, but it's only got 3 fingers, and it doesn't look like it'd be able to do much because of the fact that it's so small, and obviously it's on the end of a wing, so it's not particularly manoeuvrable, but it could be used for a few things, I suppose, and obviously just helps guide the wing anyway. Apart from these sort of small arms/hands, Aerodactyl has large legs that help support its body, because obviously it does have to land at some point and it's got to use these legs to support itself. So these large legs help support it and keep it stable, because having these huge wings, and obviously the tail we'll look at in a minute, mean it has to have some sort of balance. So this big bulky legs actually help it sort of stand up and not fall over or topple over with all of its weight. As I mentioned, it has a long spiked tail. It's not particularly a spike, it's more like, I don't even know, an arrow on the end of it. It's not quite a spike, but that's the spike on the end of a tail. It looks pretty cool in my opinion. It also has another spike on the back of its neck / the top of its back in between its wings, and this spike is probably to help people ride it, because if it hasn't got a spike and you're riding an Aerodactyl, where are you going to put your arms? How are you going to hold on? I guess you could put it around its neck, but that's not always the nicest thing for it. So it might have developed this back spike, or just had it there anyway, which helps people hold on to this spike when they ride it. So maybe that's why it's been put on the design. Maybe it's not why it evolved to have it, but maybe that's why Game Freak decided to give it the spike on its design. Aerodactyl's head is actually a pretty small head. If you look at it, it's fairly small, but what makes it look bigger is this huge jaw. It's got a giant jaw. Its jaw is twice the size of its head itself. Its head is just smaller at the back, whereas the jaw is like twice the size of it and extends down deeply. The top of its jaw is a ridged snout-like thing that just sort of has almost a beak on the end of it as well, whereas the lower jaw is lined with loads of teeth, and these teeth actually, I think in one of the Pokédex entries, are described as serrated, so it's going to clamp down with its jaw and move its teeth back and forth, or move its prey or whatever it has in its mouth along, and it's going to cut it up and crunch it up, and that's not going to be a nice thing, so best not to be eaten by an Aerodactyl, to be honest. But that's basically Aerodactyl's design. There's not much apart from that. It's got huge wings, it's got a big jaw, and it's got a tail. That's basically it. So, if we want to look at some of the descriptions of Aerodactyl from the Pokédexes to find out some more about it. We are told that Aerodactyl roamed the skies, hence because it has wings, in the dinosaur era, and it's actually described as the dinosaur era in the Pokédex entries. So we can assume the Pokemon world has a sort of a similar history to the real world, sort of dinosaur era, prehistoric era, and then moves on to eventually to humans and everything like that. Maybe, who knows? But the prehistoric era, the dinosaur era, is when Aerodactyl roamed the skies, as with all the other fossil Pokemon. Well, not the skies, but you guys get the idea. Aerodactyl, we're told, goes for the enemy's throat in battle. It doesn't just go to attack you, it goes for your throat, and it's going to clamp down on your throat with its huge jaw, and if the teeth don't sort of bleed you out, it's probably just going to end up ripping your jaw apart. Well, not really ripping your jaw, ripping your whole throat apart. And that's not going to be nice. Generally, it's not going to be a nice thing to do. So, and the size of that jaw as well, especially when we get to look at the size comparison, it's a pretty big jaw compared to you. You don't want to, no, just don't let it happen, guys, because Aerodactyl will rip you apart, basically. We are told that it possibly flew along the sky fiercely, or does still fly along the sky fiercely, because obviously it's not around in the Pokemon world at the moment, apart from a few that have been revived. So we don't know how they got this information, but maybe it's just assumed that it flew around in the skies fearlessly because it was the top predator in the sky. Basically, nothing was bigger than it, nothing was more powerful than it. It could eat whatever it wanted, basically. So it had no fear. But we're also told it uses high-pitched cries to possibly scare away other Pokemon, or scare away any possible predators of it, or maybe even to scare away other Aerodactyl if they were competing for food or something like that. They could just, with that high-pitched cry, the one with the loudest or the highest cry will win and scare away the other one, and the other one might think, "Oh shit, this guy's too big, I can't mess with him," and then leave him to be, basically. Who knows? But sort of going along with the flying along the skies fiercely, we're told Aerodactyl is imagined to be the king of the skies back in the old days, back in the prehistoric days, just because of how powerful it was, basically. And I guess they haven't found any other prehistoric Pokemon that are more powerful than Aerodactyl that flew around in the sky. So Aerodactyl basically had the sky to itself. Why did it become extinct? Who knows? Maybe it was a similar event to how we had the extinction of dinosaurs on our own planet. We don't know. But obviously Aerodactyl was revived from genetic material found in Amber. This is specified in the first game where there is old Amber, and also it's carried through into other games in the future as well. I think Amber has been used in the anime as well, but there's also been an Aerodactyl fossil in the anime I remember seeing when I was researching for this, so possibly maybe you can revive Aerodactyl from fossils as well as Amber, who knows, but obviously Aerodactyl fossils are still a thing as well. It's not just in Amber, it's not that weird. So the origin and the basis for Aerodactyl, what is it based on? Where did it come from? Well, as I mentioned already, it's from the dinosaur era, so it only makes sense that Aerodactyl was based on a type of dinosaur, and it was indeed. It was based, or is based on pterosaurs. Now, pterosaurs were winged reptiles found in the Cretaceous period. I think it's late Triassic through to mid-Cretaceous, something along those lines. And they're basically winged reptiles. Now, when you think of maybe the name Aerodactyl and the name pterosaur, you think of pterodactyls. They are the most well-known pterosaur. However, it wasn't just pterodactyls. You had pterosaurs of very tiny size, you had huge pterosaurs. I think the biggest pterosaur has a wingspan of about 10 meters, and I think Aerodactyl almost gets there as well, so watch out. But pterosaurs came in all shapes and sizes, maybe shapes, who knows. But Aerodactyl is particularly based on the, wait for it, Rhamphorhynchoidea branch. I can't say that, who knows. The Rhamphorhynchoidea branch, which is because of the fact they have teeth and long tails. Some pterosaurs just had big beaks that sort of snap together and it would just eat its food like that. Whereas the pterosaurs from the Rhamphorhynchoidea branch actually had teeth on maybe their lower jaw and their upper jaw as well, who knows, and also long tails. If I show you a picture, or you should be seeing a picture now, you can see a tail that looks very similar to Aerodactyl, so possibly that's where it came from there. Aerodactyl also has some dragon-like characteristics, particularly that of a wyvern, namely its tail, because of the spike on the end of its tail is not too seen, maybe, who knows, as well as obviously just Aerodactyl's general design. It's also on Lance's team in, I think, the original games, as well as the remakes of Fire Red and Leaf Green, and maybe it's on the team in Heart Gold, Soul Silver and Gold Silver as well. Don't quote me on that, I'm not too sure. But that makes sense, it has dragon-like characteristics, hence it might appear on a dragon user's team, etc. there. So yeah, that's really the sort of the origin and the design for Aerodactyl there, based on pterosaurs. The naming for Aerodactyl, well, its Japanese name is Terra, which comes from pterosaur. And when you say pterosaur, you say pterosaur, okay? You actually say it with the A almost, even though it's spelled with the O. So if you said it with the O, it would be pterosaur. Whereas Terra makes sense, you know. Terra also, if you say Terra, it's terror, you know, or I'm terrified sort of thing. It's a terror. And if you heard Aerodactyl's high-pitched cry, I think you'd have some terror instilled in you as well, because of the fact that, you know, this huge creature is going to swoop down upon you any second and snap you up in its jaws just to eat you, basically. It would be very terrifying indeed. The English name Aerodactyl is a combination of aero, which is Greek for air, hence the flying type and the fact that it's sort of the king of the skies, and pterodactyl, as I mentioned, which, you know, it's the pterosaur that's most well known about. If you asked someone to name a dinosaur that flies, I'm pretty sure everyone would say pterodactyl, unless they were some sort of fossil expert, you know, that actually knew other ones. But yeah, pterodactyl is sort of the most known about flying dinosaur, so it makes sense that it would have it. And man, that's it really for Aerodactyl, apart from its size. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm taking its actual standing height to be its size, so not quite its wingspan, because the wingspan, as I show you Aerodactyl there, the wingspan as Aerodactyl is a pretty much 8-9 meters, so it's a pretty big wingspan. But if you had the wingspan as 1.8 meters, it would be a tiny Pokemon, okay? It would be tiny. No one will be able to ride on it. But if you take 1.8 meters to be its actual height, as you can see, it's just a bit shorter than me there. Well, I've taken it a bit shorter than 1.8 meters necessarily because of the fact that if it stands up a bit more, it would probably, you know, be at its full height, etc. But there you are. There's Aerodactyl. Definitely big enough for you to ride on, and definitely big enough to do some nasty damage to you or any of your Pokemon that were quite small as well. So Pterodactyl is certainly not a Pokemon you want to mess with. But there is more, because as you might know, guys, Aerodactyl has a Mega Evolution. So let's look at Mega Aerodactyl. So Mega Aerodactyl, it keeps the same typing, being a rock flying type still, but the height and weight dimensions do change slightly. Its height, slash what is actually its height, we decided that already, is 2.1 meters or 6 foot 11 inches instead of 1.8 and 5'11", so it's gone up a foot in size, and it now weighs 20 more kilograms, going up to 79 kilograms, or a few more pounds as well, up to 174.2 pounds. Looking at the models from Generation 6, there's a regular and shiny. You can see the colouring basically stays the same, you know, the sort of colouring you have. You have pink and purple. It's almost a darker purple now. It's a very much deeper purple, which looks cool in my opinion. And obviously to evolve your Aerodactyl into a Mega Aerodactyl, you're going to need yourself some Aerodactylite. So, Mega Aerodactyl is more rugged and rough than the normal Aerodactyl, whereas normal Aerodactyl is sort of almost smooth over its whole body. Mega Aerodactyl has now gained these black spikes and black markings all across its body. It's got, you know, spikes on its wings, whereas its fingers have now gone and just turned into these huge spikes coming out. Its ears have now become spikes coming out. It's got a black sort of mark on its chin almost, and then another, almost a beard, basically, coming out the bottom of its jaw. With markings on its chest, it's got almost, I think its claws now on the back of its foot, and more spikes on its tail. It's got a very rugged and very almost nasty now. It's just much more vicious. Its skin has become a slightly more pink grey, at least looking in the Sugimori art, it becomes more pinky grey, it's got a bit darker. This isn't really reflected in the Generation 6 models at all, but it does in Sugimori art. It looks a lot pinky greyer rather than sort of pure grey, and its wings have become a slightly darker purple. Again, this isn't echoed in models for some reason, who knows. But that's that, and its eyes have also become a more vivid green. Whereas previously they were sort of a pale green colour, they're now a sort of a deep... It's a cool green. I like the green. It's cool. And that is that. But that's pretty much it for Mega Aerodactyl until we look at the size. Obviously, it's gained 1 foot in height. So it's gotten a bit bigger. And because it's not sat down anymore, we can sort of gauge its size a bit better. And it's gotten a fair bit bigger. You know, you can see here, it's gotten a fair bit bigger, and it's now, you know, a comparison of it flying in the air. I've compared the jaw size to the normal Aerodactyl, and this is pretty much the same jaw size, maybe just a bit bigger. And you can see it's a very big, very menacing Pokemon. If it was down on the floor, obviously it wouldn't look as sort of boom and huge. It's definitely very easy to carry someone on its back there. But yeah, that's Mega Aerodactyl, and that's Aerodactyl in general, guys. A bit more of a shorter Pokemon Origins episode today, but there's only one Pokemon to cover, so what can you expect? as I said, next episode we'll start on Johto, moving through the Johto starters and looking at some more Johto Pokemon, so be sure to suggest down there below what I should cover in the Johto region. But for now, this is going to be it for me for today. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button and drop a comment below. But for now, I'll be seeing you next time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, my friends.